Hello, I'm Norman Robinson, and welcome to NOLA Crime Crisis, a show developed to open a dialogue among city leaders, officials, and business owners about the crime currently happening in our city. On today's panel, we are fortunate to have, and we would like to welcome District Attorney Jason Williams and Mr. Rafael Goyeneche from the Metropolitan Crime Commission, both whom not only care about the city, but also work for the city to ensure that it sees brighter days ahead. DA Williams and Mr. Goyeneche, thank you both for being here. As we talked about prior to the taping of this broadcast, this is a discussion about what's happening in the city of New Orleans as it relates to crime. And the mood is slightly ominous among residents. We recently took a camera to the streets to talk with one gentleman who articulated that his concern is such that he decides to take his business elsewhere when he wants to socialize with his family.
I have a group of friends. We go out all the time, and you know, I'd say eight out of 10 times we're going to go out to dinner in Metairie instead of going down to the French Quarter for sure, just because we find it dangerous to go. So we're going to end up going to Jefferson Parish instead of New Orleans. As opposed before, we'd always go out downtown or somewhere in the city, but we're looking to always go outside back into Jefferson Parish. It's scary. I also have two kids. Thankfully, they're both away at college, but when they're home and they're going out at night with their friends, of course it's on my mind that where you're going, make sure you got a ride, make sure you know how you're going, because it's too easy for things to happen here.
Not to be an alarmist, but we find this discussion happening more often than not. How do you relate to such comments, Mr. District Attorney, when you hear them? And I'm sure you have heard them.
I hear them frequently, even more frequently now. I hear them from family members. My mother does not want to, at 76, she doesn't want to pump gas at night. She doesn't really want to pump gas in Orleans Parish. It's real. It is not just a perception. If a doctor tells you that they are diagnosing you with cancer, you don't want to hear that. It scares you, it raises your anxiety level, but you need to know what it is so you know how to address it. And so when you hear a city leader say something like they rebuke this idea or they don't agree with it, facts are the facts. We are the murder capital of the world. The French Quarter is dangerous. New Orleans is dangerous. And that is why we all need to recognize it and work collaboratively to pull us out of this. We're in a fight for our lives right now.
Are we not working collaboratively? Not
at the level we need to. It's one thing when you're collaborating in a way when things are going fine, right? But when there's flood water in the street, we do things differently. There's an exigency to our collaboration. And right now we're being flooded with crime, violent crime, and there needs to be an exigency to that collaboration, coming up with new strategies, not the same stale ones that haven't proven to be successful, but things to get us out of this crisis. So it is time to ring the alarm. Rome is burning.
Mr. Goyeneche, as head of the Metropolitan Crime Commission, you're sort of the watchdog in this situation. How do you assess what's going on?
I think we're in the situation that we're in right now because the majority of folks in this community felt that there was a sense of apathy. And when you start to see some of the turnouts for some of the recent elections, I think it's indicative of the fact that the public felt that their vote didn't count, that there was a sense that nothing could be done about crime. So the Metropolitan Crime Commission started to talk about the escalation of violent crime in March of 2020. And month after month, we saw the crime rate go up while the numbers of officers went down. And the reason that the numbers of officers went down, the solution to fix that was something that was done during the Landrieu administration. When the numbers of officers began to plummet, the mayor offered a pay raise to police officers. That stabilized the department. In 2019, when Sean Ferguson was appointed superintendent of police, by the end of the year, we had the lowest homicide rate in over 20 years in the city of New Orleans in 2019.
In 2019.
Right. The pay raises were in effect. the pay raises expired in the spring of 2020, at a time when COVID hit, at a time when the social justice movement was underway, and week after week, month after month, violent crime went up as the numbers of officers went down. And the Crime Commission called for pay raises. It fell on deaf ears with the City Council and with the mayor. And the numbers of crime and the percentage of crime went up in 20, in 21, in 22. And now, after 3 years of week after week, month after month of escalating crime, the public finally this year said enough is enough. They demanded that something be done about it. People are tired of having to go to the Jefferson Parish, if you live in the city, to buy your groceries, to gas your car up and to go out to dinner. You look at the sales tax revenue in Jefferson Parish, the sales tax is lower in Jefferson than it is in New Orleans, but the amount of taxes collected in Jefferson rivals what's in New Orleans because so many people from the city are going to Jefferson Parish to spend their disposable income. So this is a trend, and finally, I think the silent majority has become the vocal majority now, demanding that something be done about it. And now we are going to be launching the most historic pay raises in the city of New Orleans. The City Council has approved increased funding for the district attorney's office and all of the components of the criminal justice system, but there's accountability. Every component of the criminal justice system has to go to the City Council every quarter and show what progress they're making. So I think that's a statement to the fact that the public has demanded something and the political leadership is responding to that call.
So the council is, and the mayor's office are responding to the call now.
Exactly.
You said the bell, we need to ring the bell.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Rafi's right, and MCC has been ringing that alarm. If you recall, every single time I'm before the City Council, I make it very clear that Rome is burning. I make it very clear that we are in an emergency crisis that requires an emergency response, not the usual pace of things. We have $60 million that came down from the federal government to infuse the city and the criminal justice system. And there was a lack of strategy for a while about how that money was going to be spent. The Surgeon General—
That's incredible.
The Surgeon General said before we shut down this country that there would be a massive fallout in terms of substance abuse, domestic violence, violent crime, and cities needed to be prepared for it. Now you're starting to see the answer to that clarion call, as I think as Rafi was describing.
Some of the conservative critics, and I say conservative because I think, you know, most people are in terms of the approach they take to dealing with crime, had criticized your office for being too soft,
Sure.
especially when it comes to handling juveniles. What kind of change or approach did you make in terms of those concerns? So
one of the things, when I was running for office, I said that I would not prosecute a juvenile in adult court. And I don't want to. I don't want to live in a society when that is necessary. But when you see, the numbers aren't large, but the few that we have involve some predatory behavior, involve multiple incidences of violent crime, mass shootings, perpetrators posting themselves in ski masks, holding guns. These aren't juvenile infractions. These are adult level crimes. And the way the juvenile system is set up, a juvenile who commits a heinous crime like this would be in jail till their 21st birthday. That level of accountability was not enough. And so I reversed course in very short order. And in certain instances, we used the 305A transfer process to transfer a juvenile offender of a violent crime into adult court to hold them accountable in a way that morality simply requires. The other component of that is this idea that being smart on crime is being soft on crime. We made it very clear that we wanted to focus on the lions and bears, not squirrels and rabbits. Folks who are in the throes of addiction or mental health crisis, we can handle that in different ways. Just like the NOLA Coalition was talking about investing in people who need help, we need to do that. We need to hold violent predators accountable. And so there needed to be some adjustments in the system, and we did that very quickly.
It's interesting that you observe that there are some violent predators in our community.
Absolutely.
Some people are offended by that description or characterization, but it's real.
It's very real. Evil is real. It is not an abstraction. When you look at some of the level of violence that we see in this country, that we see in this community, if the folks who are tasked with managing that and dealing with that, if they don't, then it grows and it exacerbates.
You've been sounding the alarm about this for a long time. Have we reached the point where we are finally recognizing the situation as it is, and it's going to be difficult to put the genie back in the bottle?
So, as you pointed out, I've been here a long time. Some say too long. Yeah, but I've seen the cycles, and what we're going through right now, I've seen happen before. I've seen the system do things the wrong way and the consequences of doing that, and we're going through a cycle right now. And Jason is new as the prosecutor, the chief prosecutor, the DA. And I think you don't sit in that desk, behind that desk in that office, and are not moved when you start meeting with victims and witnesses. And some of the positions that he ran on sounded good in theory, but once he assumed that office and started to see this, mark of a good leader is recognizing that maybe some of your policies need to be amended. And I'm seeing that with Jason right now. So as a prosecutor, you make decisions on a case-by-case basis. You do not have a blanket philosophy, because as a prosecutor, you have to apply the law to every case that is presented to you, and you have to take into consideration not just the offense, but the offender's criminal history. And I think that Jason, to his credit, has done that, and he's amended some of his policies that after he's been in that office, he realized that, it sounded good in theory, but it really is not doing a service to the public. And he is the DA for everybody in the city of New Orleans, whether they voted for him or not. And I think that he's recognized that and has shown that he's capable of leading that office and willing to reassess the situation and improve what he's doing. And I respect that.
A lot of police officers and also Council member Eugene Green have opined that it appeared, I don't know about now, but it appeared historically that we were becoming a society that was more akin to empathizing with the suspect than we were with the victims.
I disagree with that. I know that there are some that focus on correcting the sins of the past. And this state and this city has many. You can engage in criminal justice reform and you can deliver blows for public safety at the same time. Those things go hand in hand. Whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, whether you're on the left or the right, no one wants an innocent man in jail because it means that the real perpetrator was left on the street, right? So when you deal with those issues and you confront them, and you also are going back and looking at the cold cases to figure out who actually done it and figuring out ways to hold them accountable, everyone, right or left, agrees with that premise. Now, when you talk about what we're going through now, and Rafael alluded to just before we went into the pandemic, we had some strategies that were put in place. Mm-hmm. Jeff Asher was a part of that. Michael Harrison was a part of that. Strategies were put in place to bring violent crime down, and it went down, right? The foot on the gas of some of those strategies was let up. The same way pay raises, that was pulled back.
Why?
Sometimes, these things aren't institutionalized across administrations. Mayors change, councilmanic terms change, and policy priorities change. Crime was at an all-time low, and so I think there was a hope and a belief by many that it would remain there. But like a garden, these things have to be tended to. And when you have upticks, you got to measure those things. You got to see, is this a blip or is this a trend? And when it's a trend, that's when you have to put those strategies in place. Honestly, it's really important to probably keep certain strategies in place across all mayors, across all DAs, across all councilmanic districts, because that's when you can get that level of consistency in place.
So we need to deinstitutionalize some of these things.
Well, to make sure that when something works, it doesn't matter who got elected, we need to keep doing the thing that works in our city to keep the city on track, because businesses, citizens want consistency, especially as it relates to public safety.
So we took our eye off the ball. Since 2019, since the latter part of 2019, we took our eye off the ball.
We declared victory, and victory is something that you have to continue to nurture, to maintain, and I've seen it happen before. I've been around a long time, and I've seen the consequences of declaring victory, and as Jason pointed out, taking your foot off the accelerator. When you take your foot off the accelerator, you slow down, and if you're trying to head up a hill, you start to slide down the hill. And that's what we're doing right now. So we're correcting. If we'd have invested nominal pay raises in the police department in 2020, when the earlier pay raises ended, we wouldn't be down 350 officers. We wouldn't be down a third of what we need to police this city. But, the political leadership, this is not, as Jason pointed out, I couldn't agree more. This isn't about white or black, blue or red, Republican or Democrat. Public safety is a fundamental that everybody in every community wants to feel safe. It isn't a dividing factor, it is a uniting factor. And there's a balance. Progressivism and criminal justice reform is not mutually exclusive to public safety. And I think that the public recognizes that, and we're starting to see the politicians more respond to that. And I think that we'll be a safer city, a better governed city, because the public, I believe, has re-engaged in requiring more of their elected public servants.
When you talk about the public re-engaging, the police chief has disengaged. In fact, he has handed in his resignation. He has retired. He says he was not forced out. Some of the insiders who have connections with the police department and the chief have told me that he was simply tired. What was your reaction, and what are you feeling now since the police chief Sean Ferguson, announced that he was retiring?
Well, I wasn't surprised
You weren't.
at the announcement. I know the number of years he's given to the department and to the city, and he had reached the retirement age and requirements. I think anyone across the board, and I think you heard former Chief Ronald Surpass mention this, no chief has had to face what Sean Ferguson had to face in terms of needing to do more in terms of calls for service. We had increases during the pandemic in every area, from sexual assault to DV to violent crime, at a time when we had fewer officers ever, and the recruitment efforts, the foot had been taken off of the gas in terms of how aggressive we were recruiting. It's not enough to be hiring. We need to go and cajole folks from all across the country to come to a city like New Orleans to work, right? That stopped. And because of the consent decree, we can only graduate so many officers from the academy because that's a piece that we can't get around because the federal judge hasn't allowed it. Which means if you have officers leaving faster than you can bring new officers on, you're in a sort of a bit of a death spiral. And I need police, just like citizens need police. I need those reports faster when they make an arrest. I need faster responses on calls for service so that evidence is preserved, because it's not enough just to make an arrest. We need to have a strong file So when it gets to court, we can prove the case. We now have to prove our case to a unanimous jury. 12 out of 12 have to agree, which means the standard is higher. And so all this was happening during Sean Ferguson's tenure. And so the fact that that it reached a tipping point, and he needed to take care of himself and pull back, I'm not shocked by that. I think the thing that's important, though, is we have good consultants, very good consultants.
You like the consultants?
You check their background. These folks have a certain level of expertise, and we need that expertise right now. And I hope that we are listening, that every decision maker at every level realizes when you pay an expert to come in and help you fix something, you need to take that advice. And so I want to make sure that we're listening to the advice of those consultants and experts as we decide who is going to come lead this department next.
Your assessment of the police chief's notice that he's retiring?
I wasn't shocked. The shelf life of a police chief is 3 to 5 years. So Sean is a month shy of 4 years, sort of in the middle of that. At a time, and I agree with Ronald Serpez, this is the toughest set of circumstances that any police chief has encountered during my 35 years around. And that includes Katrina. Because after Katrina, the city was depopulated. There wasn't the crime problem. But during COVID, during the shutdown where businesses were shut down, the population was still here. And as his numbers of officers declined every year, so far this year, the year isn't over, we've lost 158 police officers. We're at the lowest staffing level that we've experienced in over 70 years for the police department. And he's been the superintendent, never once complained about the hand that was dealt him. He has, done the best he could with the resources that are available. And I listened to his press conference, and he said, it's time for me to start thinking about my family and myself. And I respect that, and he's earned that right. So the important thing is now every police chief has a shelf life, and they're going to come and go. So under the model that we have right now, last month the voting public passed a city charter change requiring the city council to approve whomever the mayor appoints. So I think that it's going to be very interesting because Sean Ferguson's last day is December the 22nd. And that city charter change goes into effect January the 1st. So in theory, the mayor could make a permanent appointment, ignoring the wishes of the voting public, circumventing the council's ability starting on January 1st to ratify and approve and confirm any appointment. And I think that if the mayor does make a decision to appoint a permanent superintendent, not only is she ignoring the public's wishes, that more people voted for that than voted for her second term of office, but she is setting up whomever she appoints to receive less than the optimal support from the community and from the political leadership in the city of New Orleans.
So it seems to me that there's a sense coming from you that there ought to be a national search.
Absolutely, there should be.
What about that?
And that doesn't mean that you ignore the local talent. Just means if you're going to select the most qualified person to lead this department forward, keep in mind, as Jason pointed out, we've brought in a set of consultants from outside of the city. They're from New York City. So if we're going to bring in consultants from New York City to tell our police department, why would we not consider the most qualified candidate? Why would we only fish out of the Audubon Park Lagoon when we can fish out of the Gulf of Mexico and find the best chief to lead the police department forward?
How do you come down on the question of whether this ought to be a national search or not, Mr. DA?
Look at it this way. We have the title of being the murder capital of this country. This is a crisis, critical moment for this city, right? We need the best available person to take this post. We need that Michael Jordan who wants the ball when there's 5 seconds left and has a strategy to get us out of that situation, right? I played football at Tulane in the 90s. You remember how that was?
Yes, I do.
We didn't win a lot of games. You see what's happening now?
Yeah.
Leadership matters.
Leadership does matter.
And who the head coach is matters, because people want to play for a certain person, right? And that helps with recruiting people to come, and it helps with morale. Because being a police officer, it's not a job you go to because of the money or because of the clothes and the cars. It is a calling, and you need to be inspired by who's at the top. And so we need to make sure that whoever comes next is someone that's not going to cause a mass exodus of rank and file officers. They need to be involved. They need to be heard. The experts need to be heard. And the people of this city need to be listened to as well.
So, as we close this discussion, are you, as the chief would say, seeing the glass half empty or half full?
I think we're heading in a new direction, a positive direction. Everything that I'm seeing gives me hope for 2023 and beyond, because now the politicians are listening to the public, and public safety is being prioritized once again. And that's not going to be to the detriment of some of the rabbits and squirrels that Jason was referring to. The low-level offenders deserve and have been receiving a second chance. They'll continue to get those second and third chances. But there has to be a recognition that public safety is the foundation of prosperity. And I think the public has demanded that, and I think the political leadership is responding to that.
Mr. Williams?
When it comes to the glass being half full, half empty, I'm always appreciative of a sip of water, wherever it comes from, right?
Right.
But I agree with Rafi. The city of New Orleans is trending up. It is trending up because people are engaged in a way they've never been engaged. Look at the NOLA coalition,
yes.
right? What they have been putting together is the same thing Rafi just mentioned: supporting people who can do good if they get the help and intervention they need, holding those people accountable who are preying on our citizens and taking them off the grid because they don't deserve to be here if they're going to take advantage of their neighbors. So we're trending up. Joe Giarrusso, this council saying they want to have sort of quarterly check-ins on how money is being spent. That is smart. That is good government. We need transparency. Sunshine drives out mold and mildew. And so if we're going to be spending $60 million in the criminal legal system, you damn well better believe if I was on the city council, I want to know how every criminal justice agency is spending every penny every quarter. And frankly, I am glad to answer those questions to the city council.
Thanks to both of you, Rafael Goyeneche, Executive Director of the Metropolitan Crime Commission, and of course our esteemed District Attorney, Mr. Jason Williams. See you next time.
Absolutely.
All right. We would like to thank you as well for joining us on NOLA Crime Crisis. We will be back next month with more city leaders, business owners, and protectors of the people looking to make a difference in our community. I'm Norman Robinson, and we will see you next time on NOLA Crime Crisis.